A message to citizens who think they have no power. Read. No history. Korea. In Korea, in the 1970s and 1980s, if any Korean person publicly criticized the Korean government, they would be disappeared by the government. Sometimes a husband would go to work one day and just not come home, ever. Sometimes a husband would disappear for 6 months and then would be dropped off in front of his house, but with his legs cut off or his eyes cut out. The government knew that a person coming back with no eyes would scare all the neighbors more than someone just disappearing forever. And the government wanted to keep the people scared and believing that the people could never change their government. Most people were too scared to do anything, but some people refused to be scared. In the 1970s, some university students started to talk to each other about making their lives better and changing the government. The students started writing and giving speeches and spreading their ideas about freedom of speech, about human rights, about justice, and about rejecting dictatorships. They published their ideas in secret books and were very careful not to get caught giving their books to more and more people. Many students made mistakes and got caught by the police. Tens of thousands were killed. Military tanks came onto the streets and onto university campuses. Soldiers came onto the streets and onto university campuses with machine guns and shot teenagers and young people, and streams of blood flowed in the streets of Seoul. But many refused to stop believing and having hope. They said, "We may not succeed in this generation, but we will keep fighting to give our children a better life and freedom from fear." It took over 20 years, and many people were killed in the struggle. But in 1988, just before the Olympics in Seoul, Korea, when the whole world was watching Korea on CNN and international news, the power of the people together became so strong that everything changed, and the government became afraid of the people. If all the people come together, they can absolutely crush the government. The people united, working together as one, were like a tsunami in Korea, and the government was like a small house of wood. The tsunami's power crushes and swallows the little house. It took more than 20 years and thousands of protests in the streets of Korea for Korea to become a full democracy where citizens feel they have power to change their country like they do today. Citizens demand justice and good government for the people. The Korean people showed courage and heart, and today they are a strong nation, and they are giving a better, more free country to their children. East Germany. In East Germany in the 1980s, the government told everyone to tell the police if their father, brother, friend, or co-worker said something criticizing the government. People were so scared of the government and police that they would tell the police about their own family members' criticisms of the government, because they were so scared that the whole family would be killed and tortured. Most people were terrified of the government and believed the government was stronger than the people, so they accepted their situation and didn't do anything. Groups of intellectuals, authors, and professors were not scared. They secretly talked about changing the government. They spread their ideas. In 1989, the ideas had spread so far that the government became afraid of the people. Iran. In Iran, the US government had strong control over the Iranian government in the 1970s, just like in Egypt today. The people did not have rights, and there was not justice for all. Ayatollah Khomeini was brave enough to challenge the USA and challenge his own government. He encouraged all the brave Iranians to stand up and refuse injustice. Ayatollah Khomeini encouraged the people from his home in France because the Iranian government wanted to kill him, so he was not safe in Iran. The Iranian people won. They founded an Islamic Republic and pushed the US government, the strongest nation in the world, out of Iran completely. Any determined nation with unified people is stronger than the US government and military and stronger than their own government, police, and military. Cuba. In 1956, Fidel Castro in Cuba lived in a country owned and controlled by America. He gathered a group of 80 soldiers in the mountains of Cuba. In 3 years, he was the president. Listen to U.S. President John F. Kennedy's words after the Cuban Revolution was over. I believe that there is no country in the world, including any and all the countries under colonial domination, where economic colonization, humiliation, and exploitation were worse than in Cuba, in part owing to my country, America's, policies during the Batista regime before Castro. I approved the proclamation which Fidel Castro made in the Sierra Maestra when he justifiably called for justice and especially yearned to rid Cuba of corruption. I will go even further. To some extent, it is as though Batista was the incarnation of a number of sins on the part of the United States. Now, America shall have to pay for those sins. In the matter of the Batista regime, I am in agreement with the first Cuban revolutionaries. That is perfectly clear. Blacks in the United States. In the 1950s, in the South of the USA, black people could not use the same toilets as white people. Black people could not go to the same schools as white people. Black people could not eat at the same restaurants as white people. One woman, Rosa Parks, made a decision. She was not going to be afraid. She went and sat on a bus in the seats that were only for white people. She broke the law and said, "I am breaking this law because it is unjust, and I will sit in this seat." She was arrested by the police and taken to jail. But her story spread in the community and in the newspapers. Many black people who were afraid of white people heard Rosa Parks' story. They thought, if this black woman is not afraid, why should I be afraid? Many black people decided they would break unjust laws and be arrested. So what happened? Hundreds and hundreds of black people were arrested and put in jail. But the more people, the white police arrested, the more black people broke laws, and the stronger and louder the black people's demand for justice became. Soon, there was no more space in the jails to put all the black people being arrested. And the white police knew they had a big, big problem, and that they could not keep arresting people. The white police became afraid of the power of black people. In 1964, the U.S. government passed the Civil Rights Act, a new law that made it illegal for any business, school, organization, etc., to discriminate against black people, or Mexican people, or women, or Asian, or Arabs, or any other minority group in the United States. India. A small, thin man named Mahatma Gandhi united the people of India and got freedom from Britain, the most powerful empire in the world. The stories of people working together to change and improve their country and empower the people is told again and again throughout history. A question: what would happen if 80 million Americans were moved into Egypt under the Egyptian government today? The American people, in their minds, are united, strong, and believe in justice. They are not afraid of the government. There would be a revolution tomorrow morning, and the government would be afraid of the people. If you believe you don't have any power to change your government, you do not understand history, and you do not understand the world. People are weaker than their government only if they are afraid and believe they are weaker. If the people have real leaders and work together in any country in the world, they are stronger than their government, and they will make their government afraid of their power. If you have time to complain, you have time to do something about it. So ask yourself, are you powerless? Are you scared? Are you a leader? What will you do?